What was the worst decision you saw someone else make? I had a friend ask another friend to shoot him with a blow dart. First the guy shot him in the leg, but my friend thought that was too easy. He was an overly confident Marine Reserve, so he asked him to shoot him in the side. The guy did and it punctured his lung, though he wouldn't admit it. Then, trying to play it cool, he decided to go home, when really he was going to the hospital. We all followed him to his car trying to convince him to let one of us drive or call an ambulance, but he just kept saying nothing was wrong. He collapsed right as he unlocked his car, and we had to call 911. He's fine, aside from his injured ego and wits. I once fell off the monkey bars in 4th grade and split my forehead open, blood everywhere, and I also did the whole, "No, it's cool guys, I'm fine. I'm going inside because I have to pee or something. Ha ha ha, I totally bombed that jump but I'm fine I swear." "No, you're crying Steve. Ha ha. I'm so okay I'm just gonna start running inside." And then I fainted. Boys are stupid. A dude I used to work with had put an engagement ring on layaway for his girlfriend. He was excited to ask her, but used layaway to make sure he would have time to make the proposal perfect. His girlfriend got hired at the same job, she snooped and found the ring, and cancelled the layaway saying that he has horrible taste, and how could he think she would wear something so hideous. It was a 3/4 carat solitaire. Once he got to work, she made him put a 1.5 carat solitaire on layaway and she berated him for the remainder of the day, and for the 5 months leading up to him proposing. He cried at work, multiple times, and she bragged about making him cry all the time. His parents were staunchly against him marrying her, especially after she announced at a family get-together that she would leave him if he didn't find a 6-figure salary out of college. They got married anyway. Edit. For those of you wondering, last I heard from a coworker is that they moved closer to his family so he could work for his dad. She used to talk about his parents like they were dirt beneath her heel, so I'm sure it's going about as well as one can imagine. She was a terrible person. Her stepdad had a lot of money, so she had become accustomed to the lifestyle, which she was no longer living in. We all told him at work she was wrong for him, but he made several excuses for her. She talked non-stop about this one-of-a-kind $80,000 dress she was going to buy to get married in. I laughed in her face when she told me. My husband proposed with a $200 ring after he and I discussed for months the idea of marriage. The ring was beautiful and I loved it. He surprised me on our 2-year wedding anniversary with a slightly larger, gold-banded ring similar to the original. Our wedding only cost $2,500. She scoffed when I told her. She is probably my least favorite person I've ever met, and I've met a lot of shitty people. I went to a party with a friend and she smoked meth. I worked in retail in college and met her there. She was really nice, and we had the same sense of humor. After a few weeks she invited me to a house party in the middle of nowhere, and it was all like all dudes in their 30s. She was dating one of them, and we were like the only girls. I wanted to leave right away, because not only were the people weird, but the house was weird too. Like there were no outlet covers on the outlets, and barely any furniture, but there was a stripper pole in the living room. She drove and convinced me to stay for one drink. When I got back from the kitchen with a beer she asked me if I wanted to smoke meth. She actually called it something else, but I didn't understand and only figured it out after she started explaining it to me. I declined, and then watched kind of in shock as she started to smoke it while her boyfriend started telling me that it wasn't as bad as people think. I ended up calling my boyfriend to come get me, and walking to the main road to wait for him because I really didn't want to be near that house. The next time I saw her at work, she told me that a few hours after I had left a guy who had been punched at the party had called the cops, and she had been too afraid to go back to her car after running from the house, so she had spent the whole night just walking around in the nearby woods. I quit like 2 months later and never saw her again, but my friend who continued to work there told me, a few months after the girl was fired for smoking meth in the bathroom at work. Good buddy of mine got together with this girl he met off of an OkCupid-ish app. Had 3 dates with her. She lived about an hour south, before she decided to quit her job and move in with him. Roughly 3 months later we're out having a few beers, and he's complaining about her toxic personality. Says he's through with her and going to break up. She gets pregnant. Buddy mans up and agrees to marry her. I don't see my buddy much anymore, but the last time that I did, he had a big fight with her and came over to my house to crash on my couch. What was the fight over? She had open palmed slapped the kid in the face. The kid is like 1 year old. My cousin dropped a full ride baseball scholarship at a college in a town he grew up wanting to move to for a girl he started dating his senior year of high school. She was 2 years younger than him. He went to a state school instead, that's 40 minutes from his hometown. She cheated on him and they broke up not long after school started. Ouch. When I was about 7 years old, I was in the car with my parents, going across the bridge from Niagara Falls, Ontario to Niagara Falls, New York. The deadly Niagara River is right below. There was quite a wait due to traffic, so we were pretty much stopped. A bunch of teenagers were goofing around, hopping out of their car and play fighting, etc. One guy hopped up on the railing of the bridge and did a handstand. It was terrifying. His friends yelled at him and he hopped down. Then he did it again, and fell over the railing to his death. My family is from Buffalo, New York. My uncle visited the falls a few years back and saw a lady fall in. They had fenced off some parts that are normally accessible, because of increased water flow or something like that. And the lady disregarded this, slipped, and fell in. The worst part though, is that she actually managed to get up, out of the river, onto a bit of debris or a part of the water covered path that was somehow accessible. I'm not sure, I wasn't there. She got there and stood up, and everyone watching called for her to stay where she was and wait for a rescue. She didn't listen. She fumbled around, tried to climb on the debris back to shore, and slipped and fell back in. Her head was above water all the way to the edge of the falls, and my uncle and other onlookers saw her face, eyes wide open and terrified, right as she went over. She didn't make it. That will never leave him. There was one incident in my hometown that made me want to tear my hair out. A family moved in a few years ago. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. The mother was looking for work as a teacher, but there was no openings, so she worked as an aide. My mother was on the school board at the time, and she noticed that parents were complaining about the lady, as she was apparently ignoring students and favoring others, getting angry when her children got bad grades from the other teachers, etc. Mom invited her to the next school board meeting to discuss the situation, and the lady went nuts. The conversation broke down into screaming, and the lady swore she would take Mom's spot on the board. Sure enough, when election sign-ups went up online, she was the only person who ran against Mom. After months of an attempted smear campaign, Mom won the election with more than 200 votes. The lady only got 5, all from her extended family. So what does the lady do? She decides to pull both of her children out of public school, as she doesn't want them corrupted by the teachers and the board. The son was a senior in high school, months away from graduation, and the daughter was in middle school. My sister was in her class, and she said the daughter screamed and kicked her mom as she dragged her out of the classroom to check her out, begging her not to do it. She left all of her stuff in her locker, and the school had to send it to them. When Mom heard the news, she was horrified and tried to talk to the family, but the father had been browbeaten by his wife and refused to put the kids back in public. It's been a couple of years since then. The mom homeschooled the kids, but the son works in the oil field and is trying to get his general educational development. The daughter is a complete rebel and has been arrested numerous times for drunk driving and vandalism. But the mom still has the audacity to act smug whenever someone runs into her at the grocery store. At least my children know how to live in the real world. Sure, Kathy, keep telling yourself that when you have to bail your kid out from jail. A woman married my ex-husband after she witnessed him snapping my wrist like a twig, carrying on an affair with him for a year of our marriage, and knowing full well he was an addict. It was like watching a train wreck. I had to keep repeating to myself that it wasn't my problem. Outside a bar, the bouncers offer to pay for a cab. Guy says no, calls his girlfriend. She won't pick him up because of the baby. He says he won't drive, walks off, gets in his car, does 80 miles per hour down a side road and gets busted for DUI. Offered a free cab ride home. Effed up his life. Could have killed someone. A friend signed with a professional sports organization at 18 years old for $1.2 million and spent 95% of it on junk without putting any of it into an investment fund. My 20-year-old minimum wage heart is crying. My 30-year-old recently laid off heart is tying a noose. Saw someone else decide to cut off a bus as both were approaching a red light. I was on the bus. Driver said, "Hold on, this guy's a ducking idiot." We slammed into the truck. Truck slammed into the light post across the intersection. 0 out of 10 would not experience again. This reminds me of a time when I was in high school. My bus got into an accident because some asshole ran a red light. He got T-boned by the bus, and his truck did at least a 180 and was facing the wrong way with the rear axle being ripped off. Barely a scratch on the bus. But truck dude and 2 people from the bus went to the hospital. Me? I woke up in my nap when we hit the truck due to the sudden jerk. Edit. This happened in Florida. Some idiot I used to know was convinced pepper in the eye wasn't nearly as painful as people made it sound. We just watched him pour pepper in his open eyes and laughed when the screaming began. Saw a rookie drinker at a house party mix Snapple with a half a glass of Everclear, thinking Everclear was a simple alcohol mixer. 20 minutes later, projectile vomit everywhere. In a redeeming moment, a few hours later, he drunkenly got up from his sleep and decided to haphazardly mop the kitchen and went back to sleep. Friends sold their beautiful home for a huge loss because they were concerned about the way things were going with the local real estate market. Later that year, gentrification took root, and their house was worth almost 3 times what they sold it for. I witnessed my friend kick a skunk in order to get it away from him. Bad decision. I had a family of skunks that lived by my house for a long time. I moved, they're probably still there. They were always very friendly, so long as you didn't get too close to the kits or act aggressively towards them. They never let me pet them or anything, but they were perfectly content to chill out on the lawn just a few feet away. I told that to an idiot cousin who was over one day, and she apparently interpreted that to mean that it was okay to try and pet one of the kits. It didn't quite go according to plan. My friend met a girl at a wedding on the last night of a short overseas trip and decided to cancel his flight home the next day and stay in a foreign country with no job, no place to live, barely any money, and a tourist visa, just to try and get with her. This was 5 years ago, and they are engaged now, so I guess the decision was in a way the best decision he ever made. Still seemed really short-sighted at the time though. Second-hand story, but here we go. Colleague of a friend came into work excited about having bought a new house. Thought she'd got a great deal because they took like $50,000 off the original price. Why? Because they found out the place was completely infested with termites. Really, all she bought was a very expensive piece of land. Edit for clarity, no, she wasn't deceived or misled by the previous owner. She knowingly bought Termite City. I know a guy who was supposedly recruited to be part of Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, not even out of high school. Saw his girlfriend dance with another guy at graduation, and in a fit of drunken jealousy punched a brick wall and shattered a dozen bones in his hand. Never played an instrument again.